When I first became an atheist in my teenage years, it was because I felt that the existence of God was rather unlikely, and even if God did exist, it seemed even more unlikely to me that the Bible contained any accurate historical information about things that had happened, and that therefore there was nothing very interesting about the Bible, since it was just a big list of things that didn't happen, with a few morals mixed in there. I became much more interested in things that historically definitely did happen, and in things that were scientifically provable, and the world of morality wasn't very interesting to me. It seemed like it was obvious that all you had to do in life was just to avoid hurting other people and to avoid offending other people if possible, and that you could basically get along okay if you just applied some common sense. Some people think that religion is a thing of the past and we're moving into a future where everybody will be an atheist. But since I started watching Jordan Peterson's lectures, I don't agree with that. I used to be sure that there wasn't anything special about religion that couldn't be fulfilled using secular methods, but now I just don't know. And I've been going to church again just to find the answer to that question, really, to try and figure out if there's anything going on at church and in the Bible that is special, right? I don't mean special like magical. I just mean something that can't be got anywhere else, something unique. Jordan Peterson's biblical lectures about the book of Genesis made me really think about whether the stories of Genesis were special. Maybe they do represent something that can't be found in just regular stories or just from deductive reasoning. There's an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation called Darmok. Darmok. It's considered one of the best episodes of Star Trek. It's about the Enterprise encountering a race of aliens who they cannot understand. The Federation's translators don't work on this alien's language and nobody can understand them. And these aliens kidnap Captain Picard and put him on a planet with the captain of their ship. And together they try to understand each other.
Darmok and Zilard at Tanagra.
And what the crew of the Enterprise deduce is that the aliens are speaking a language that is completely composed of stories, or memes, kind of. They're speaking entirely in memes.
It's as if I were to say to you, Juliet on her balcony. An image of romance.
And when I first watched this episode, I thought it was a really cool science fiction concept for this race of aliens to have this kind of language. But now when I think about that episode and those aliens, I'm thinking about the Bible and about the stories that we love to tell as human beings. And I think about all of the analogies that we use in our speech and all of our metaphors. And so I think the human mind is very good at recognizing stories. I think maybe humans understand stories a little bit better than we understand, just basic principles in language. I think a principle that's demonstrated in a story is perhaps much more meaningful to our minds than just that principle described in plain English. So perhaps these stories in the Bible that are thousands of years old are the wisdom from our ancestors being passed down and filtered and perfected. Jordan Peterson did a lecture on Adam and Eve that was, I think, almost 2 hours long, and he found so much in there. I really believe that he could have talked for 2 hours more on it if he just kept going and kept digging. So whereas before, if you'd asked me if Adam and Eve were real people who walked on this planet and who really did all the things that the Bible says they did, I would have said, of course not, that's stupid. But although it may not be a true historical account of what really happened to the first man and woman, I think that the story is true in the sense that it contains much truth. There's so much that's true in the story of Adam and Eve, in my opinion, and I don't know whether it's possible to understand all of the information that's contained within the story of Adam and Eve if you just laid out that information in a list. There would be something lost in that process. You'd be missing the meaning behind the story by just laying out the principles that are demonstrated in the story. And I think this is true even of things in the Bible that aren't explicitly stories, but just one level of abstraction above the stories in the Bible are the concepts that are described in the Bible, like concept like sin or God or heaven, or the concept of grace, God's grace, or even something like prayer and angels and devils and demons and so on. I think these words describe something that is actually real, something true, even though the literal, most basic interpretation of those words, that they don't represent something physical in the world. It doesn't represent something that's made of atoms. They describe matters of the human soul. And even the word soul, I can't even describe what I mean without using the word soul, because it's such a complicated concept. I think there's so much contained within these words that adds so much meaning to what I'm saying, meaning that can't be conveyed using words like consciousness and, human emotion. So what if there's a lot of information in the Bible, in these stories and in these concepts, right? If there's not anything actually useful being said, then there's not much point, right? So that brings me on to what is actually useful about religion, or what's useful about these stories and these concepts. And weirdly, I keep coming back to something that ContraPoint said when she made a video about Jordan Peterson.
Because people need to have a positive purpose in life. I mean, personally, I don't give a shit. I'm pretty happy to sit here watching the same 3 seasons of Strangers with Candy until I die.
And although she said a lot of things in that video that I didn't agree with, it was that statement that I agreed with the least. For the past year or perhaps 2 years, I've been developing this belief that's just been getting stronger over time, that human potential is the worst thing to waste. The idea that somebody is not living up to the very best version that they can be, either because some outward forces are holding them back or because they're holding themselves back, is such a terrible evil. It's such a terrible reality of this world that happens every day to pretty much everybody at some point. I've even started to look at morality through this lens of wasting human potential or helping people to fulfill their potential. And for me, that is what the idea of God means. That is what God is. It's the best version of yourself calling out to you from the future. The best person that you could possibly be, and the best life that you would have if you would only fulfill the best person that you could be. That it's your ideal, right? It's the thing that you're working towards, that you could have if you only acted perfectly every single day for the rest of your life. And because it requires acting perfectly, and all humans are imperfect, it's not actually achievable. It's not actually possible to reach it, because people make mistakes, and we can't live up to it perfectly. We can't live up to our own ideal perfectly, but we can do our best. We can get as close as we can. If you take on everything that you're capable of taking on and attend to the parts of your life that require your attention, you can achieve a lot. But what are the right things to take on and to pay attention to? And what are the aspects of your life that require improvement? And when you decide what those things are, how are you going to be strong enough in your convictions to actually pursue those things rather than being distracted by the short-term pleasures of the world, eating chocolate cake and playing video games? These are difficult questions, and maybe there are some Ubermenschs out there who are capable of answering these questions for themselves without the help of religion, but I personally feel like I need some religion in my life to help me answer those questions. I need some of that wisdom from my ancestors, because every person who's ever been alive has had to deal with that sort of thing. Even if their lives looked a lot different superficially, the quest for a good life and a meaningful life is one that every single human who has ever lived since Eve ate of the apple and we gained sentience and free will, all humans have had to answer those questions about themselves. And I think maybe if I keep looking in the Bible and in other religious scholars who've studied the Bible, maybe I'll find some answers. And I think that's what this series is going to be about, although it's not... All of my videos aren't going to be about religion, though. They're going to be about other aspects of life. But I'm going to come back to religion. I'm going to read some C.S. Lewis, because that was something that a lot of people recommended and that I have enjoyed in the past. So I'm going to return to C.S. Lewis in his fiction and non-fiction. And I hope to have a talk with Paul Vanderklay, who a lot of people recommended. I was really surprised by that. But I've been watching some of his videos, and I've got in touch with him, and he's agreed that he'd be interested in talking to me. Not that we've made any promises or any arrangements yet, but if you have any points that you want me to ask him, I can't guarantee that I will, because I want to ask him what I'm interested in asking, not your questions, but you can make suggestions. And I'm going to come back to religion later, in a few weeks or maybe in a few months. Although I don't think I can, I don't think I can figure out all of Christianity or all of religion in that time. But I think I'll have some more to say on it. My washing machine's just come on. Sorry if you can hear it, but I think that's a good reason to stop recording now. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you real soon.